Welcome.
Vijay, how are you?
Welcome. This is a very sensitive topic, so you better tread carefully here.
Okay.
People are armed with tomatoes; they may, take offense. But historically, there's been a tension between the sustainability function and the bean counters who keep saying no. But I think what we will know, and we've chronicled this in multiple editions of Sustainability Week done in different continents, that the CSO function is increasingly reporting to the finance function. And that brings with it some challenges and also some opportunities. So can you tell us a little bit? Is this what you're observing? Because you obviously advise across many companies on different continents. How is the role changing, and how is the role of the CFO increasingly becoming relevant to people who are concerned about sustainability?
Yes, for sure. And I think it's happened quite quickly as well. If I go back to 2 years ago, I spent most of my time talking to CSOs. And now I spend more of my time, if not majority of the time, talking to CFOs. And that's sort of two reasons for that, twofold. Firstly, the burden of reporting and transparency and compliance has moved from sort of sustainability teams into finance. And I remember a number of years ago,
It's gone from the kids' table to the big.
Well, that's it.
The adult table. I mean, we'd be a bit rude
exactly
here,
right.
but,
and they're not. Let's be honest. The CFOs and finance are not all happy about that either. They have enough on their plate. But the reality is, in organisations, many organisations, the home of high integrity and controlled data is finance.
Right.
So it's probably only right that all the non-financial reporting and that non-financial data is also moved into that function. So that's sort of first reason we're speaking. But secondly, probably more importantly, is there's much more scrutiny now on sustainability initiatives, on transition plans, etc. And a real, which I think is good, and you need finance involved in that. And I think one of the reasons I said before, like, why they've not been CSOs and CFOs house friends always, is, let's be honest, CFOs ask really difficult questions. I'll be honest with that as well. I'm scared of my CFO. They ask really the questions that you don't want to answer. And I think that's a wake up for us.
I mean, among the questions you'll ask is, where's the value in this, right?
Yeah.
That is, can you show metrics? And, we know the first rule in business is what matters gets measured. The second rule is what's measured gets managed. And sometimes things in sustainability are squishy.
Yeah.
And that might be for good reasons, though. It could be that metrics, the data is not that great, but it's still an important area. It might be an area where a firm has made a commitment, but even the best in practice firm could not give the data that a CFO would want. What happens in that case? Does that mean that you lose ambition? That is, you just sort of become a less sustainable firm? Or do you keep working at it but don't make a big noise about it? Let's say green hushing, as the trend is called. What are you observing?
I think there gets a lot of frustration there as well, right? Which is, why are you asking all these questions of us?
Right.
We agreed we were going to do this. We had these ambitions and we have a purpose as an organisation. So can we not just get on and do it? Why are you holding us back, asking for all this additional information, all this additional data? And but I think that's positive because that level of scrutiny and work that needs to go into then evidence the benefits and the value that these programs can deliver mean that when they do come into question, things do come into question because circumstances change and CFOs are always trying to manage multiple different parts of the business, you've got something much more robust to defend why you're doing it. And to your point around sort of some of the things are a bit fudgy or a little bit hard to define, yes, they are, but that doesn't mean you can't. You just have to work harder to do it and work very much with your finance functions, using their language, using their tools to flush it out.
And the reason this trend is taking place, how much of this is driven by regulation, particularly here in Europe, obviously? Is it a compliance reason, or are there other drivers at work?
I mean, there's definitely a big part of this compliance, right? And I was happy with the omnibus in terms of pushing stuff back because I think we were trying to do too much compliance too quickly. And therefore that brought a reputation and a noise in the system, which was, we're doing all this reporting and why are we doing it, et cetera. And I don't apologize for it because there's a reason why we're doing it, to your point around measurement, and you can't improve what you don't measure, and we need to baseline. But we hopefully are now going about it in a much more sort of manageable way for organizations. And I think some of the thresholds that have been adopted are helping that. So yes, there's been a drive to compliance has driven it, but I'd hate for that sort of narrative to be the dominant one, right? You need to come back to, and this is, I think, the challenges for many CSOs, is to get that narrative back. What is their narrative in the organisation? Because it has moved a little bit and they got a bit caught up in the compliance side.
Isn't there a fundamental problem with this trend? And that is, we have, in many markets, the US most notably, but others as well, a short-term focus on financial results because of the reporting cycle, because of investor pressure. And so it's only right, there's a fiduciary responsibility the CFO has and senior leadership to present credible results and be transparent about them. So there's a push for metrics. But many things in sustainability. We just had a lovely session on watersheds and how we may see a progress in the Atlantic Basin and the forests. We heard about there's no 1 quarter or 2 quarters in which InBev is going to be able to show results. I can guarantee that it's going to be a long-term investment, and it's slightly an article of faith, but it's not faith based on nothing. It's based on science, on ecology, on experience, right? So wouldn't an excessively financial approach cut off such an initiative at the knees or other ones that require some time to grow?
I think if you've got the evidence and you can actually articulate with confidence the impact of not acting, right? Then I think that's when you can start to hold up to some of those short-term challenges. But I think to be naive that you don't have to respond to the short-term challenges, and you're absolutely right. I think in my career, I feel we're almost as narrow or as short-sighted as we've ever been in terms of the pressures on quarterly and half-year and yearly results. So to get executive teams to think longer term, I think they need more evidence. They need more data. They need more quantified business cases and quantified plans to say, here's the impact if we don't. You may not feel it now, but you're going to feel it there. And then the second thing with that would be the role of boards. Because I think the role of a board and the relationship with the CSO and the board members is super important as well, because boards need to have the chin up and looking further out. Executive teams, as you rightly say, right now are under so much short-term pressure that even if they want to be looking further out, it's the old, I've got to be here. I'll be here to make sure I look after that longer term, and I won't be here if I don't hit my quarterly targets.
Okay, so you're a stout defender of the dark side. Here's your chance to ask Dark Vader a question here. A quick hand in the back. There's another one over here. Let's get a couple of questions in. Right there, the lady there is the first one.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Fern Freeman. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Search with Purpose. We are a executive search firm focused on sustainability leadership roles. And one of the things we are seeing more often is that close relationship between sustainability and finance. Rob, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think the CFO is asking the CSO for that they could get better at answering?
Great question.
It's a great question, and probably touch on a little bit. But what do CFOs want? They're looking for. I mean, they're quite analytical. If I want to make a massive sort of generalization of my CFO colleagues, and sometimes our CSO is a bit more expressive. So CSOs generally, and people in sustainability, they like to tell stories and talk about the long term and talk about the purpose of the organisation and the impact we can have on the world, which is great. Whereas the CFOs, I hear all that, but I want to understand the detail. And that ability to sort of move from the strategic down to the detail, I think, is what many CSOs are challenged with at the moment. So I think it's that ability to go deeper and be a bit more analytical. It's about getting evidence and about driving the evidence down to a level that can then be investable.
CFOs are from Mars, CSOs are from Venus. Is that what I'm hearing? All right, let's go to the next question. There's a lady there. You can get the microphone too. And I see something on the Slido as well.
Thank you. Christina from Centre for Synchronous Leadership. My question is really around some of the top mistakes that you see CSOs do in terms of their relationships with the CFO, but also with the board. Do you see sort of common mistakes that you wish that weren't committed? Thank you.
I think one of the first ones, very generally, is there's almost a tendency, and you've introduced me as Darth Vader, which is lovely, but there's a tendency of CSOs to sort of think that the CFO isn't on their side, is a blocker. And actually, we run an event called For Futures, which is all about sort of taking groups of clients into the future, and we do that with CFOs. And you'll find, as I know with my clients, my CFO clients, they're as passionate. Many of them are as passionate, if not more passionate about this agenda. But they have a role to play as well. And I think there's a bit of, how do you connect with a human? So how do you work on the relationship and maybe start, the mistake I see maybe is people start with a starting point that the CFO is against us and trying to shut us down. And they keep on saying no to our programs. I think what they're really saying is, I want more information. So it's not now, not with what you're asking for, no. But if you can couch in a different way and if you can provide more evidence and give me a better story, then maybe. So that would be the first one on the finance side.
That's a very useful tip. See them as people rather than adversaries first.
Yeah.
And then try to win them over with the data. Any other questions? I know we have questions on the Slido as well, so maybe you can reflect on that for the moment. The tangible business value coming from sustainability. How do you make that case? The most, what are the drivers? How do you, I guess it's the next level of the question we just heard. What is it that would persuade those CFOs who want to be persuaded? It sounds like I didn't know that. I thought they're just terrible human beings. But turns out they're adorable.
Turns out they're adorable.
Turns out they just want to be
outside.
persuaded by the data.
Correct. And I think it's about articulating and quantifying the two sides of what we call it a value bridge, but really it's around helping to quantify what are the risks you're trying to avoid. And for that, you need to understand the different types of risks. So there might be supply chain risks, raw material risks, there might be regulation risks. So in terms of fines, there's taxes, cost of finance, the whole suite of risks that you're trying to avoid. And understanding and quantifying those with a timing of that as well is super important. And then it's also the upside. So what are some of the opportunities that come from the programs or things that people are trying to get approval to do? And that's sort of showing the downside risk, because CFOs are always worried about a downside risk.
Yeah.
Always a little bit more skeptical about the opportunities, because a lot of people come on their desk looking for opportunities and saying, look at this fantastic thing we can do, and we'll create a new product, a new service, and our clients will love it because it's a sustainability-backed product. Probably a little bit more skeptical on that. But if you can quantify the risks that you're trying to mitigate and the timing of those risks, then that can be very powerful.
Yeah. Any final question from the floor? We're almost out of time. I have one. There's a question there. Let's get a microphone.
Hi, really interesting discussion. My name is Lina Wiles. I'm the CSO of Adaptio Group. I'm hearing quite a bit of almost derogatory language from the stage here today towards us as CSOs. And I'm wondering, why is it that the onus is so single-sidedly on us to convince the CFOs? Why isn't there a dual dialogue that should be taking place here?
I thought it was being unfair to the CFOs, calling them Darth Vader and the dark side, but point is well taken. We'll let our speaker answer.
Well, first of all, apologies if that was what I was coming across, so that wasn't my intent at all. But I think it raises a really interesting point. And you're absolutely right, you need both sides to see each other. But I think, and if you think about any relationship, it's a bit like, what do you want to get out of it? And there's a little bit of, my advice would always be, take the ownership to say, I need to get something from this relationship with the CFO. And I do feel sometimes, and this is not been the vilification, but there's almost this, why should I? Like, why do I have to justify myself to the CFO? Yeah. We've got a purpose. I've got a CEO who's made a bunch of ambitious statements. We've got targets, and I just need to get on and deliver those targets. And why they keep blocking me, and why do I have to sort of bend the knee and speak in their language and refer to those? And I get that. I absolutely get that can be a frustration. My coaching on that is, look at, can you sort of look at what you're trying to achieve? And the reality is that's a really important stakeholder to get on side. So taking the time to think, well, what can I do to have a better relationship or to try and meet them in a place that they're more comfortable with? It would be nice if they came forward and they met you as well as part of that. It'd be nice if they led into that. But my point, I would say, as I said before, is I think if you can sometimes connect with the human behind the screen of the Darth Vader CFO, sometimes that can open up as well. But I do get the frustration, and I didn't mean to vilify CSOs at all. But I do get the challenge sometimes.
Well, Rob, listen, we're out of time, but you can see that you've clearly animated the audience. I think you've given us all a lot to think about. I'm sure the conversation will continue. So thank you for coming.
Brilliant.
We appreciate your intervention.
Thanks, Vijay.
You bet.